Hi,
Hey there.
TikTok superstar. I'm flattered.
Yeah, I try and butter you up a little bit. I'm trying to butter your biscuit before we talk. It's a classic dishonest lefty debate strategy. How you doing?
Not too bad. How you doing, man?
I'm
Do I
doing.
need like a webcam or anything? Do you want to
No, no,
go
no.
on like
Just
a?
we're chill. I'm just
Okay,
an
okay.
interstice. My beard needs shaving. It's okay. We don't need to compare appearances right now.
That's fine. Mine needs a little trimming too, so don't even worry about it.
Yeah.
Mine's actually dog shit, so
How you doing?
not too bad, man. How you doing?
Well, I just beat I would call it a difficult segment in the game that I was playing, but my chat I think is already prepping their omegalos of that one. So
Good
I'm
lord.
happy with my performance. Yeah, anyway,
Half Life Two, you're saying, right? Or Half Life
Black
Black
Mesa.
Mesa, right?
Yeah, yeah. Um
Okay.
yeah, so we don't need to beat around the bush. I'll preempt this. I'm not that
Sure, sure.
familiar with your content. I think that goes both ways. Um
Oh yeah, for sure. Nothing against you. I'm just so lazy to watch a YouTube video in general.
yeah, likewise. I don't have the laziness as an excuse, I don't think, because your
Well,
videos are
TikTok
quite a
is
bit
mind numbing.
shorter than mine. Yeah, I'd say that I just haven't picked up my phone and given it a shot. But anyway, I saw one of your criticisms of me, and I'm going to be completely honest with you. I've forgotten it, but it seemed like a relatively cogent criticism. I thought it might be worth
Mhm.
talking to you.
Okay, cool. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Do you remember it?
No, it is completely vacated my mind. Do you remember anything you've said about
Yeah,
me?
I think it was mostly. I think you had made a point about. It's so weird because like I'm positioning for the camera, but it's not on. It's. I think you had made a point about how conservatives do so well on TikTok because their perspectives are very. I don't know the exact wording that you used. I don't want to say like childish, basically,
Mhm.
or very easy. So it's much easier to absorb them, and that's why conservatives do better on TikTok because they have like kind of dumb ideas.
Yeah.
I'm paraphrasing, and then I had responded with the fact that the reason because it seemed like you were making the comparison because conservative pages are uh, more popular in the political sphere than progressive pages, and I had made the argument that conservatives just tend to galvanize around their perspective and their arguments, which I think is true in real life too. I don't know the exact statistic, but I think conservatives make up like substantially fewer people of voting age in the United States, and yet they still are on par when it comes to voting.
Yeah, there are definitely a lot of reasons for that. I don't think these arguments are necessarily incompatible. I think the
Mm,
reason why it's easier for conservatives to galvanize around specific ideas, as opposed to progressives who are all doing their own fucking thing, is because as you
right.
increase the complexity of a belief system, you increase the likelihood that individual actors who subscribe to that belief system are going to deviate in some way with regards
Hmm.
to their strategy or approach. For example, with regards to George Floyd, I have
Hmm.
seen the same take on police brutality, race, and crime in this country from 40, 50, 60 different people. I've seen it
Hmm.
from well meaning libertarians and I've seen it from neo Nazis. It's the
Hmm.
same set of arguments. It's very easy to rally behind. Whereas the responses to that, like the actual nuance sociologically of why this shit happens and what we can do to prevent it, that is exponentially more complicated. And it gets really, really difficult, I think, to coalesce around complex ideas like that.
Hmm. But you don't think that there's a way to elevator pitch like George Floyd's dying?
I mean,
Like in a more concise way, because I would make the argument that like a lot of progressives are very toxic when it comes to conservatives. You can think it's justifiable or not, but to an extent where it's like very like ostracizing for conservative voices, and like so they kind of just huddle in a corner because I had mentioned the point that there are progressive pages and conservative pages, and the conservative pages are more popular. But when you leave the sphere of politics, everyone else that does other things, when something like George Floyd happens, they still rally around like the overall progressive idea, and they kind of just batter conservatives back into like a corner when they ask a question, which is out of ignorance. Like they'll say, "Well, systemic racism doesn't exist," and like, of course, like I disagree, but like nobody takes the time to educate them. They all just say, "No, it does exist," even though don't necessarily educate themselves on why it exists. So they don't use some kind of an argument to say it exists because of this. They say, "No, you're dumb, racist, and wrong," and it kind of just causes people to double down on their beliefs and just stick to that corner.
yeah, the issue is when you're talking about whether or not systemic racism in the police system exists,
Hmm.
the negative position is, well, no, it doesn't. Yeah, blacks get beat up more or whatever, but they commit more crime. And the
Sure,
positive
yeah.
position necessitates an understanding of multivariate regressive analysis, which requires a master's degree in either statistics or sociology. So
You don't think there's a way
inherently,
to?
I
Well,
mean,
I understand.
you can say like,
Yeah,
well, they're disproportionately targeted, but I don't think conservatives know what disproportionately means for the most part. I'm
sure.
not sure
But
if
you
that
could also
is
just
in their
say like poor
lexicon.
people commit more crime. And if you think that black people are equal to white people, then why are they disproportionately causing more crime and
Well,
why
then
are
they
they
would
more
say
violent?
like, well, why are black people more poor? Usually, the argument
Right,
conservatives make
yeah.
is they gesture at the inherent inferiority of black skulls,
But I haven't
but they
seen that
don't.
though.
Well, they don't say it, and a lot of them
Right.
don't know that's what they're pushing for. This is one of the
Hmm.
things that I find most frustrating when you're taking a libertarian approach to race and crime in this country, like a very
Hmm.
individualistic approach, and you talk about sociology, like okay, so poor people commit more crime. Well, why are black people more poor? Usually, what
Hmm.
they'll do is they'll explain away any conceivable explanation for disproportionate bias on the part of our systems, but they won't
Hmm.
offer a counter explanation as to why black people could be doing so much worse. When you defer to answers like, well, black people just make worse choices, or, well, I think it comes down to individual preference, or I think their culture is worse, and you don't
Hmm.
provide a socioeconomic answer, what you're essentially deferring to is that black people are stupider, like inherently.
Right. But I would say, like, for instance, when we talk about like the culture that's been created in black communities, I see a lot of people when like a conservative brings up that point, a lot of people will instantly go, well, you're racist if you believe that. But there's a level of truth to a particular culture in those poor black communities that is derived from systemic racism. I mean, any group of people would choose not to go to school at a higher rate or sell drugs if they were literally robbed of opportunities. But nobody takes the time to like explain that that's why it exists. Nothing to do with them being black. As far as like a race specific, I mean, it is because they're black. That's why systemic racism exists.
I
But
don't
like
know
their
if they're. Oh,
inferiority
sorry.
as black people isn't why they're in that position. You understand what I'm saying? I don't see anybody try to make that argument.
I think progressives do. Just usually that argument is hand waved away. Well, right now, both of us are
I haven't
using
seen it.
we're
Yeah.
using very non-falsifiable arguments. Well, what we've
Right.
seen, how do we feel? It's
Right. Yeah.
undeniable,
Sure.
and I would agree with you on this. I don't know how familiar you are with my content, but a lot of what
Hmm.
I do is sort of based on the idea that I think lefties are shit at arguing. They're fucking
Hmm.
terrible at it. When I got into this, I was
Why do you think
disgusted.
that is? I'm just curious now that you brought that point up.
A lot of it is because most of the talking points that the right wing tends to use have literally been designed by PACs and by focus groups that are financed by billionaires. So it's very easy. A lot of that stuff comes top down. For
Do you
example,
think that
like
do you think that part of it could be like an age factor too? I mean, older people are generally just better at expressing themselves.
possibly. Oh, somebody in chat asked. I know I said this earlier, but this is Papa Gut from TikTok. Yeah,
Papa underscore gut.
Papa underscore Gut. Obviously, none of these fucking fakers and
Obviously, none of these
losers
figure.
who forget
Exactly.
the underscore. Um,
Excuse me. Sorry about that.
I don't know if it's necessarily an age thing. I don't think older people are any smarter or any better at arguing. In fact, my experience with these little TikTok Zoomer conservatives is that they're actually quite a bit better at arguing than a lot of the people I'm used to from YouTube. It's pretty impressive. Of course,
What,
they're
even
all
like
just
the conservative hype house?
yeah, they're wrong
haven't
and
seen
they're
like any.
horrible people. I think horrible
You
like
think they're bad people? I've never
little
consumed their
people.
content, so you think they're horrible? Because I've never seen their content. Like I don't look at other people's.
Oh yeah,
Content.
yeah, yeah. It's basically like fascist apologia. Most conservatives are pretty morally bankrupt, I'd argue, but a lot of them don't
think
know
so?
it. You got to move them over on
Yeah.
it.
Do you think there's a way to reach them though, to get them to be a little more like humanity like oriented?
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah, 100%. Most of them,
'Cause
it's mostly a combination of privilege and just world fallacy. The belief that the world
yeah.
exists fair as it is today, and there must be reasons for why things are the way they are. So they'll
Sure, I
never
can see that.
accept that there's an injustice they need to fight against.
I would take that in a different direction and talk about more of like, I mean, basically I'm just saying what you're saying, but like a bubble, like they're just living their own bubble. They don't understand what's going on outside their bubble, and that like speaks to their ignorance, but not necessarily their racism. And I would say that you could parallel that with like some people in the black community nowadays, younger kids, saying that like, oh, you can't be racist against a white person and kind of demonizing white people because they live in their own bubble and they don't understand that. As silly as it is, you have to understand the ignorance of people who don't understand your situation.
Do you know what
Everybody
people
lives in
mean
their
when
own
they say
bubble.
you can't be racist against white people?
What do they think? Well, they're talking about systemic racism generally.
Do you agree that it's not really possible to be systemically racist against white people in this country?
Oh, well, yes, I agree with what you're saying. I think I said that right. Yes, you can't be systemic. You can't perpetuate systemic racism
Yeah.
against a white person.
So I would
Like, yeah,
I
you
would
can't be the
agree.
victim. Yeah,
The bubble is
yeah.
an issue, and there is like a big bubble. Like I think around a lot of progressives, I find that it's more of a argumentative bubble than it is an actual conceptual bubble. There are a lot of lefties who think that by screaming like trans rights are human rights, and just sort of like, existing, that they can surmise or surpass the systems they were born into.
Mhm.
Whereas it's, very much a game of power. I think. But with regards to the bubble thing, like I do agree with that. I just think it's about exposing people to the right arguments, getting people to see things from the right perspective, and hopefully
Right.
you
Yeah.
can move them over. That's what I try to
'Cause
do. That's the whole point.
yeah, because from my experience so far, I am followed by mostly conservatives. Progressives don't really like me very much, even though I'm pretty progressive. And they're very open to my message when I talk about things. I talk about systemic racism. I talk about universal basic income. I talk about universal health care, and like nobody hates me for it. Like I haven't seen like the argument against it for me for a lot of progressives, even if they don't agree. I see it more civilly from the progressives tend to be more civil with me, or rather, conservatives tend to be more civil with me. So I have a very different
I
experience. I know it's all
understand. I can
anecdotal, but
understand why. I think
because I look conservative.
because you criticize mostly left-leaning people in your video responses, from what I've
I
seen.
do.
It's
You know
usually now
what?
they're usually informative and well-meaning criticisms.
Right. I
But
will.
it's kind of like the Tim Pool thing, right? Regardless of what you actually are, well, no, that's a bad example because Tim Pool's a fucking lunatic. Regardless of what your actual positions are, I think a lot of people are just looking to see like a 16-year-old progressive girl with like a bi flag hung up in her bedroom get like owned
Just get
by a more
destroyed.
reasonable, like a reasonable
I
counter
I
argument.
get that. Well, my thing is like I guess because a lot of first and foremost, I'd say like I do go after more progressives. I'm air quoting only because like I don't really go after political pages that much in general. But then when like most people are just progressive by default, they're just like what I mean. So it's not necessarily progressive
I hope
pages in the
so.
sense of like politically progressive, but they're mostly just progressive saying things that I disagree with, and I think are kind of dumb.
I think most media is generally progressive.
Hmm.
And for that reason, most people's opinions are going to be sort of a neutral, ambivalent progressiveness, but it's usually kind of in a tepid liberal way,
Right.
like until it's checked, until it's questioned, until it comes down to the paint. And then usually people split. It really depends, I guess, on where their core values are. I've just
Hmm.
and I have to and I apologize, I see if I'm coming off a little bit
No, not at
how
all.
do you say the term prescriptive here, or presumptuous. There were some people who messaged me when I said that I'd be talking to you,
Hmm.
saying like, "Oh, this person's like reasonable, but they just like bully little like teenage girls on TikTok or
I
something
get
like
that a
that."
lot. I get that. I want to make
And
the
how
point
do
that
you
like
respond?
I don't go after like little teenage girls say dumb shit. Honestly, like just in my field. I mean, it comes up on my for you page, but like most of the stuff that men say on this app are just like fart humor, and like, but you see a lot of younger women actually talking about like issues. I mean, the women tend to be more intelligent overall. Like a man their age is just usually some dumb kid like talking about like haha like kill like rape all women. Excuse my language. Or rather, I don't even really see anything. Maybe it's my for you page, but it's a lot of these younger women who make these points, and like it's a very anti-straight white male narrative. And maybe I am a little bit disenfranchised with that whole thing. Um, and so like maybe I take it. I don't know if I take it personally, but it just seems to be what comes up more than anything else. I don't have a lot of young men saying dumb shit. It's mostly fart humor, from what I see.
Can I talk about what you said there? You said anti-white, anti-male narrative.
Yeah,
I hear
yeah.
that a lot.
I don't want to say it like in a weaponizing, horrible, I'm a victim way. It's
Right, I
more in
didn't
like a
think.
TikTok infantile.
Yeah, I don't think you're reeling from it or anything.
Yeah,
My
no,
main
no.
concern is that so I do know this.
Mhm.
Young people, especially not always young people, but very often young people, when they're very dualistic in their thinking. So when you have like when you're taught like white privilege is the thing,
Sure, yeah.
white supremacy exists, America was founded on genocide, blah blah blah. When you get all these like very like college 101 info points, it's very easy to
Mhm.
dive in and in a very almost reactionary sense be like, well fuck man, well fuck white people. And I know that
Right.
tends to be like a habit that they develop, and
Yeah,
hopefully a lot of them
it
grow out of
seems like
that.
a new habit of like rather than like contextualizing the issue and trying to push for equality, it's a lot of demonizing of people who they see as the oppressor. And I understand generally speaking, straight white men, they are the oppressor. I'd say most people uh, I would like to think most straight white men aren't like the oppressors. They're just other people living, and maybe they're ignorant, but they're not actively oppressing anybody.
Oh no, no, yeah, it's never, well
You know,
for me at least, because
and
I'm
that's the
intersectionally, yeah, yeah,
narrative.
It's never the individual. Individual white people suffer
Yeah,
under
right.
white supremacy. Individual men suffer under patriarchy, though obviously not as much as non-white people and women, non-men, respectively.
Yeah,
But
sure.
with regards to the arguments, I care very much about like the outcomes of the engagements we have, you know. And I
Mhm.
feel like with these groups in particular, an unfortunate byproduct of criticizing their somewhat reactive takes about white men is that we passively enable people who are only really interested in facilitating the development of a legitimate persecution complex around their maleness and their whiteness that they want to believe. And I know this is a thing because I
Mhm.
swear to God, every conservative I debate is under the impression that the left wing does legitimately want to replace existing power structures, which one will just put white and male people into salt mines or something. That when we critique these people, what we're doing is we're giving ammunition to those groups. And I don't think you're a
Mhm.
member of those groups, but I do worry. You said it's mostly conservatives who follow you. I mean, is that what they're getting out of your content?
I mean, possibly. I have a lot more progressives following me nowadays. It just take a while for them to, come around to it. Um, I understand what you're saying with that, but you don't think that there should be some kind of a check to people, like a new growing narrative of trying to oppress the perceived oppressor, just in general? Because there's two sides to it. It's like, oh, well, you have basically people rallying around me under some idea of some kind of male domination, complex. But then on the other side, you have people rallying around the idea of just like, male shame and hatred. Obviously, the systems aren't going to create that, but why not speak out against it?
No,
Just because people take my message the wrong way doesn't mean my message is necessarily bad.
no, I don't disagree. I mean, I've done
Yeah.
videos on that too. I've done videos on the existence of toxic femininity. I remember I had a huge argument with my community about no longer making Mayo side jokes because even if it's a joke, I don't like the idea that people think that being left just means getting to take cheap shots at white people.
Hmm.
So I mean, and I've had those arguments, and I've had real arguments with other content creators over these issues, and I've been mocked for taking those positions. My issue is like I do that maybe like 1% of my content because I know
Hmm.
that if I did it for a significant portion of my content, then people would begin to follow me for being like the one good leftist, you know, the one who tells it like it is and speaks out against the crazy lefties. And then I would
Hmm.
turn into like another, you know, I'd be like a Dave Rubin sort. Like I'd be
Hmm.
like somebody who exists to be a foil to a perceived bias in like a larger group.
Hmm.
At the end of the day, like the 16-year-old girls who are unironically like anti-white misandrists are a
Hmm.
fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of the power and influence of the people who are legitimately working to perpetuate white supremacy and male supremacy. And I
Hmm.
just don't know, like, in terms of allocating my time and effort, it just seems like I should be spending it elsewhere.
Sure, I get what you're saying. I understand what you're saying, and I would say that like my content, like I understand that people can rally around it because like I'm, like you said, maybe I'm the good leftist now. But still, it doesn't necessarily mean that the message isn't necessary. I would say. I mean, most of the time, I think I'm speaking out against overly politically correctness, and I've been trying to take time to be more inclusionary of like my ideas and actually criticize people on the left more. Because like for me, I don't know. I guess I grew up conservative and then I became liberal, um, or progressive, I guess,
Hmm.
as I was educated. So maybe part of me still stuck in that phase, but a lot of it's just like this weird overly politically correct bullshit where like you can't even ask a question. Like I think I had a video I criticized and I said, well, why some kids said like, oh, why aren't straights in the LGBT community? Like some stupid shit.
Wait,
And then
I
this other
missed. Wait,
person,
why is what?
oh, I was giving an example. So one kid made a video on TikTok about like, hey, why aren't straights in the LGBT community?
Oh, straights. Ah,
Yeah, right, straight people. And
yeah.
then
Well,
she's like,
I don't
oh,
know. Straight people are pretty gay these days. Maybe we can fit them in
it's
someday.
getting there.
We're
It's
getting
getting
there.
there. But then she responded with like some content creator. She responded with like, "Oh no, straight people can't be in there. They're not oppressed, whatever." And then I mentioned ally. So like ally, because there's forms of the LGBT community with ally in it.
Hmm.
And then she's like, "No, allies aren't oppressed." And I was like, "Well, that's like the point. Like, obviously, all allies would be straight because like you, or else you'd be identifying. But like, there's so much of an emphasis on being oppressed rather than reversing the oppression. So like, why not include in a community that is that includes hyper specific people and sexualities and genders, why not add ally? And they're not oppressed, but why is there so much of a focus on your oppression rather than reversing it? Like why demonize people who want to like fight for it? Because a lot of times what does happen is when you expel people who consider themselves allies. I mean, not to be too insensitive, but there is a level of truth to some sexualities being created just for some kind of a forced inclusion because they want to be part of the community.
Well, let's. All right. So
Like,
tackling these a few at a time.
right.
Um, Even if we were to accept these premises, we would then have to establish the idea that responding in the way you do is an efficacious way of addressing this. I'm generally of the opinion that these attitudes tend to phase out on their own as people get a little bit more mature. Whereas the
Mhm,
ideas that you may be unintentionally bolstering, the conservatives who think there's this onslaught of hyper PC anti white woke scolds, that tends to persist till death. There are plenty
mhm.
of old conservatives who live, bumped up in their white suburbs with their guns pointed out their window every time they hear the mailman driving by because they're waiting for the BLM marchers to come by and steal their white china.
Mhm.
So if
But
you,
that seems like we're justifying like ignorance from progressives, saying, "Well, it'll go away."
well, I mean, it's about outcome, right? Does it
Sure.
get improved if every once in a while one of these like girls gets like I guess dogpiled or whatever because you make a response video, or does it only atomize the difference between these two groups, the people who are young and haven't had their lefty ideas fully crystallized and the people who believe that they're in 2022 going to be lynched for, having
Mhm,
not enough melanin.
mhm,
My main concern here I think is that with regards to that community, you say you are concerned about like hyper political correctness. I just don't know how much these ideologies and problems manifest in like real world consequences. I
mhm.
when I
Or
this
are you just saying that TikTok is like it's a very online platform? Like, who cares?
Well, it's not
Is that
just
the?
it's even I mean even if it wasn't, like it's just like kids with like some bad ideas on how to implement their ideology, but then you go
Mhm,
outside and right now like Donald Trump is literally trying to strip like LGBT and trans rights in the medical system, and they're doing
mhm,
this weird Nazi dog whistly shit going on with their merch that I need to like look more at. And that alongside like our country is being ravaged by like a persistent skepticism of very basic medical reality with concerns to COVID, and then to like focus in, it's like there are little girls that are hyperbolic in their criticisms of
Well, right,
patriarchy.
but then effectively what you're saying is like because of like the real world problems going on in the field or in the bubble of TikTok, I shouldn't be criticizing these things.
It's not that you shouldn't be criticizing this bad thing,
Mhm.
it's that I worry you're making another worse bad thing worse, like the
Do you
harm.
really think so?
Well,
I
again,
don't know because
I don't know. I'm not
yeah,
familiar enough with your content to make any
yeah,
strong
right.
prescriptive statements here, but I do know of a person
Mhm.
called Shoe. Do you know Shoe on Head?
I don't think so. No, I
Shoe on
feel like
Head.
I know the name. I've heard the name before. I don't know the person though.
She's a prominent YouTuber and a
Okay.
progressive and a dear friend of mine. Who
Mhm,
has had quite this political journey of her own. And what it was essentially denoted by is that her greatest criticism was always of these like crazy feminist liberal types, like the wacky ones, like the ones who
mhm,
will laugh at a joke about castrating men, like those types.
mhm,
And she made fun of these people, and fuck them, fuck those people. I think it's wonderful to make fun of them, but the way she did it ended up facilitating the growth of a really far right audience, like
mhm,
really far right. And over the past 2 years, she's been making an effort to scale her content in a way that even if she makes fun of those people, she's not doing it in a way to bolster those communities. And
mhm.
that's the experience I've had with what feels like this problem. Again, I'm not familiar enough with your content to make any strong comparisons, so I'm not trying to be ultra prescriptive here.
No, I understand what you're saying. The thing is like, and I will say that my content has gotten, I guess you could say, more progressive as we've been going on. But like all the personal, I know this is anecdotal, but all the private messages that I get from people and all the responses I get are generally, it starts with Papa because I've shot myself in the foot there. But they're like, oh, I didn't understand what systemic racism was. Can you please try to explain it to me? Oh, you made a lot of good points about like universal basic income or universal health care. Things that, or like, oh, I hated your content at first, but then like I saw this video where like you said a lot of positive things about trans people, and like now I understand where you're coming from. And it seems like a lot of people just don't. They take what I say and they assign a very negative conservative value to it. And part of it's because some of my followers are pieces of shit, and I constantly
That's
make
what I
videos like
thought. Fuck
a
fans,
lot of them
honestly, all of them,
some of them are pieces of shit. I had to make another video today. I
all of them.
blocked like four of my fans because they go tell people to kill themselves, and it's like, what are you doing? Like, that's not the message. I don't even remember the video. I think the video was a response to my criticism of a girl. She made a post like, hey, stop commenting about my body, and I made a post that was like, hey, if that's your content, you're gonna get criticized because that's what you're putting out there. And so she responded back, like, "Oh, you're disgusting. You're trying to push her off the platform." And I was like, "No, I made a very respectful post back. I'm like, no, all I was trying to say was that, you guys got to toughen up a little bit because that's what you're going to get. You're going to get criticism about your content. I get it all the time." And then people attack that girl. And I was like, what the fuck are you doing? You know what I mean? Like, some people take it negatively. So they kind of add to a poor assignment of my content too, because people do block me and they say, I actually appreciate your message, but your fans are toxic, and I speak out against it. Those people are going to exist either way, but like, I constantly speak out against it. I don't get any of them talking to me and try to rally around me. It's mostly people talking about not understanding progressive issues, and then finally like actually getting it because somebody sat down and didn't demonize them and like actually tried to deliver a message to them.
Yeah. No, I mean, I would be totally willing to accept that explanation. I think that the issue is when I talk to people like you, and when I say people like you, I mean people
Fat
who are
people.
not hardline political ideologues. People who, what's the term? It's not, ride the fence has a negative connotation. What I mean is
So what did you say? What is it?
people who aren't hardline political ideologues.
Okay.
So people
I meant
who
the next
are
thing.
more
I was just curious.
iconoclastic in their perspective, people who are
Okay.
broader in their criticisms.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not. This isn't an insult. I'm just saying, like,
No, I'm not.
yeah. When I talk to people who are a little more iconoclastic in their political perspectives, I never actually know. It's very difficult for me to see, like, from my relatively uneducated perspective with regards to your content, what the outcomes are of what you do. Like, what is the proportion of your fan base? Who is affected in this way or that? But I think, I mean, what you just said, that's entirely conceivable. And I do think, by the way, that there is a lot of power in being able to deliver progressive messages in a medium and through methods that aren't as
Progressive.
right. And that's, I know that because that's one of the things that I do. I'm pretty progressive, I think, by anyone's measure, but I get a fuck ton of flack from the left online because I say retarded from time to time, and I say faggot,
Right.
and I'm edgy
Pro,
with the
pro
jokes.
gamer word.
and-
You say pro gamer words.
I am a gamer. I mean, we're in the middle of a gamer session right now.
No,
Though I'm trying to say retarded less because my chat gets super mad, but they're fine with faggot. I don't know.
I've been trying to say anything at all because I don't know how bad Twitch is, and like I try to put some of my content on YouTube.
You got to be careful on Twitch. They are very, very
aggressive.
aggressive
you know,
with that.
Aggressive. Yeah.
Anyway, the point that I'm trying to make is I think there's a lot of room with regards to like the best possible approach to be made. What's your goal with your, what's the term, channel page?
That's a good question. It's funny because like I not to go through like a history. I started all of my content on this platform March 3rd of this year. I started on like a page called Big American Gut. It was I did like kind of call out commentary content, and it got like really mean, and I was very unhappy with myself for it. I'm happy I got shadow banned for it. I'm very happy for that because like this is the first time. I'm 30.
Wait, how hard did you go to get shadow banned for it?
Like I was making too many criticisms about like overweight women get very upset when you criticize them, and my criticism was not for their weight. My criticism was that a lot of people push this very unhealthy message of like, it's fine to be fat, don't worry about your health, none of that matters. And it's like, well, it does matter. Like your weight doesn't necessarily matter, but your health does matter. And they push this really bad message for like forced body positivity rather than saying like, hey, it's okay to be fat, you're still beautiful, you're still valid, but make sure you worry about your health. And I delivered my message poorly, and it became antagonized.
Maybe.
This is the first this is like the first time that like I've been in like an internet space, I don't want to say like celebrity space, but you get caught up in it. So like I'm happy I got shadow banned on that. And then I made this, and I wanted to do more joke content. And then you get wrapped into all the politics, and then like the George Floyd situation happens, and like you get so wrapped into it, it's all you see. What I want to do, I don't know. I just wanted to make jokes. Now I make a lot of political commentary. I try to talk about the right things. Right now I'm just vibing, but I don't know, maybe something. Who knows? I will say that like my content again has gotten more progressive. I know what you're talking about, where it gets mean and the message doesn't come across right. Because I don't think the messages in my videos are necessarily bad. I think that they're blunt, but sometimes they go beyond being.
I don't actually think you're mean in your videos, from what I've seen.
Bluntness comes off as being mean to a lot of young kids.
I mean, I respect. I think that bluntness in its own is respectable. I just worry about like with that, for example, because now I'm kind of curious. I this isn't like 100% my forte, but when it comes to body positivity, my general argument is that other people, while in a broad societal sense, we should encourage health on an individual level.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah, people's health decisions or whatever people's weight is generally not something we should be policing. But fat people, fat women especially, and I say this as a fairly fat guy, get for us both perhaps get an unbelievable.
Well, I'm not
amount of
fairly
shit.
fat.
Oh, what? Hey, whoa! Oh,
I'm not fairly fat.
We are comrades in gut. Okay, let us join.
Big American gut. You know,
are you gatekeeping the gut from me right now? Okay, fine. I'm skinny then.
I have to. You have to identify it the right way.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry. Stolen valor. You're right. My apologies. Okay.
No, but I know larger women get like a lot of shit. I know what you're saying.
Can I critique you on one thing specifically?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I literally, like, right before we talked, I saw one thing of yours, and it was there was a conservative who said something about a woman's body count, and then a girl.
Okay, yeah, that's a fairly new video. Yeah.
Right, because I scrolled and I saw it because whatever gets the most popular I look at, and then the girl said, well, body count doesn't matter, and then you came in and you talked about that. And you talked about how it does matter in this way or that and the other because it can matter preference-wise.
That it can matter. I think I'm hoping that I was clear about
the argument that I would make though is that there's a difference between the semantic and the pragmatic meanings of a statement. So when that girl was saying it doesn't matter, in a semantic sense, that could be interpreted as her saying it literally has no meaning to anyone in any context, which is obviously not true. It does matter to many people. But in a practical sense, I think what she was arguing is that there isn't a prescriptive moral value associated with a person's body count. It would be if like a conservative said like, yeah, well, some people just don't want to date black chicks. And then a girl said, well, hey, the race shouldn't matter. And then you would like criticize that.
But you would say that she means that the race shouldn't matter.
Well,
I mean, in her perspective, she's saying like race shouldn't matter at all, and it can to some people.
Yeah,
I understand what you're saying.
Right, it's the descriptive and prescriptive, but by challenging the descriptive element of what she's saying, you're kind of suggesting, not in what you're saying, but maybe to some audience members, that prescriptively there's an argument to be made as well. Like, oh, descriptively these things are true, so. Okay, so slut shaming is a little bit valid because these things do matter. But the nuance between those two, and that it would be like it's like, I don't know. I guess like maybe if I was in that girl's position, like I think that it's a fairly noble and defensible cause, like trying to prevent slut shaming against women. But to have like the nuance thrown in there rather than like you attacking the guy who made the initial comment, it assigns a set of priorities that I think some people could read meaning into. You know.
No, I get what you're saying. I'm actually, I'm really listening because, like, I think that overall my content's good, but like things like that make sense to me, you know. Because what I take out of that, like the way I take out of it, is if I made that video, I should have been more clear about more of a neutral standpoint rather than seeming like I was coming off as like, oh, body count, because I don't care. Like I'm disgusting when it comes to sex. Like I'll sleep with a lot. Like I have very not low standards, but you get my point. Like it's not something that I consider shameful. At all, body count. I don't care. But I do see how people could take that value from the argument because I didn't actually make it concise enough about my perspective on it, if that makes sense.
Right. Well, it's just because I
understand that what you're saying is like, hey, maybe don't make it at all because like I'm just pushing like a particular narrative that's very slut shaming or could be perceived as slut shaming for people.
To me, there's no difference between them. That right. From a consequentialist
You don't think that there's a middle stand? You don't think there was be a way for me to make that video and say, because like she seemed very aggressive about it, and like I understand that that's the value you're assigning her. Like she was just making like a general point, but like I also think that like there's a bit of a new aged. I think that like. There's a bit of a new aged push for nothing to have any negatives to it. Because like when you have a high body count, you're probably going to have a higher chance of an STD. You know, so there's some negative there.
But if that's when people say something or the other doesn't matter, you especially in the context of like a an element or an axis of oppression. That's always, in a semantic sense, going to be untrue because everything could conceivably matter to somebody. The prescriptive statement, though, is generally, or like the pragmatic message is, as a society, we assign too much moral worth to women's virginity or to this
Right.
fact or the other. And I am
Sure.
challenging that social perception by arguing it doesn't matter, it shouldn't matter that much. But much in the same way, and at the beginning of this conversation that you and I have had, we agreed lefties have difficulty organizing around simple messages that they can
Right.
coalesce around. But that's one of them right there. It should not matter how much sex you've had. Now, of course, is there nuance to that? Absolutely, certainly, 100%.
Right.
But I don't think the nuance detracts from the broader prescriptive message.
My question is, because that's a good point. I never thought of it that way. But do you think that anybody else is thinking of it that way? Because like that's a very, very, very formally intelligent analysis of the situation. Do you think everybody's assigning that value to the situation in that way when I make my message?
Everyone,
you know what,
you
think
mean
that
like is everyone ascribing like a
like
prescriptive?
does everybody understand that? Like, do you think people understand that what you, because when you broke down the scenario of what happened and said like what I did could be seen as like a bad thing, and I'm not saying that's you're wrong. What I'm saying is that do you think everybody else subconsciously looks at it that way, or do you think that that's your view on it?
I think the majority of the people who watch your content, judging from what I've seen of it, are probably reasonable people who enjoy your cadence and intelligence. I think there's probably a small contingent of
And
your
my
audience
jokes.
and your
My
yeah, of course, and the
Yeah,
and the, the
I'm
gut
just fucking with
busters,
you.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
Which,
think
by the way, tend to be like I usually criticize, like, and like this is probably like an argument against myself, but usually when I'm contesting like the political correctness or overly political correctness, like I like to say, because I think political correctness is a good thing. I usually make jokes out of them, and then that can kind of be seen as like a shot at people too. But that's most of my overly politically correct. I mean, obviously this one. Well, this wasn't even overly politically correct.
but no, I know.
I was content. I mean, honestly, I was. I mean, I guess you could really boil it down to I was like nitpicking in that one.
Well, yeah, I would, and I don't think there's anything
right.
inherently wrong with nitpicking. It's always
I
just about
can,
the outcome it begets. I love nitpicking. I do it all the time in my
Right, yeah.
videos. I do think there's probably, and I'm sure you would acknowledge this, there's probably a contingent of your audience who is looking for more material to add to their, libtard epic owned with nuanced facts and
wish.
data. Yeah,
I wish I could be on one of those compilations.
collage. Well, one day, hey, listen, it can happen to any of us one day. We can all be added to the Cringe Comp one day. With regards to that specifically, though, I do worry. I'm very Can I go on a slight tangent, if I may?
Go ahead.
Okay.
No problem.
Right now, I'm on this. I do these political arcs. I choose subjects or individuals that I despise, and I hate them so hard that my channel becomes all about that for a few weeks.
Do you hate people that much?
I mean, in a political sense, yes. Individually, I don't care about them.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's more
I have a hard time hating people.
the ideas they represent, I should say. I shouldn't be too
that's fair.
hyperbolic.
Sure.
Right now, I'm being very critical of.
You gotta be careful, or else
right.
people are gonna take it the wrong way.
Yeah, true.
I'm just busting you. Yeah.
Well, with Rising, Rising, the show with Crystal Ball and Sagar and Jetty, it's just a political talk show. But my issue with it is that there are a lot of ideas bantied around on that show. Crystal Ball is ostensibly a leftist, and Sagar is a populist conservative. And they talk, and a lot of the ideas that get brought up are fairly agreeable, at least to me. They talk about how corporations need to be reined in, how we need like a populist working class movement in this country to address the systemic issues, blah blah. But one of the consequences of their engagement is that a small portion of the audience is going to be directed towards a great degree of sympathy for, at least in my opinion, fascism. And the nuance behind this, I've done like videos and talked about for hours and hours. But the basic gist is that if there's a small contingent of your audience that is at risk of pulling like a very detrimental message from your content, that is something that I would consider like worthy of criticism. And without knowing more about you or what you do, I can't levy that at you, only that would be like a threshold for introspection, I would say,
I get what you're saying. But don't you think, like, I mean, realistically speaking, and I understand the idea of not like stoking the flames and making them any more toxic in their conservative sense. But like, aren't those people are going to exist regardless, and they are latching on to me. What I would say is that some of these conservatives they can be. I don't think they're bad people, but maybe they just aren't. They don't have the best perspective. I would say that by them latching onto me and consuming my message, if anything, I'm softening them up and I'm humanizing them. Like, there's still people, even if, and I don't think that they're really terrible. Like, I don't think I have any neo-Nazis. I mean, maybe, who knows? But
Hey,
like I would
hey,
imagine,
they're everywhere these days. We
yeah,
all got a
right.
couple
I
neo-Nazis
would say
for a
they
while.
either they're going to exist regardless, or they're going to consume my message and they're going to start to shift towards like a more empathetic place.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
just not,
that's 100% possible. Yeah, you don't, because I don't think you come off as particularly mean in the things that you say or the things that you do.
If I
It's
did, I'd be banned, honestly, because like these people see me. Some people try to make the argument like I'm a predator.
I don't know the rules of. Okay, wait. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. My chat will literally not fucking stop talking about this. They're criticizing the pussy stretch with sex thing. So just to clarify,
Well,
just because they're really mad, and
let me clarify it. Let me be my own critic.
All
here.
right.
All right. I know somebody had made a point about it, and they're like, the vagina. I don't want to be so crude. Respect women. The vagina doesn't actually stretch from multiple, like a lot of intercourse. It's more about like the size of it. And like I was missing on that. I think I was piggybacking too much of like the birth aspect, because she had mentioned birth not stretching. It does stretch it a little bit. I mean, it stretches it out a little bit. It weakens the muscles in there. But no, like, I mean, you could say Papa Miss on that one, sure.
Yeah, I did. Well, I know birth definitely stretches. I know that's definitely.
Yeah,
a thing.
right.
I
And
think
I rallied too much around that point, and then I applied it too much to like the stretching of multiple sex encounters. When like, no, of course not.
I think
Because then that by that logic, if I fuck the same girl every day, 4 times a day, like she's a whore in the same sense of you fucking a different
right. Well,
person.
that's the joke, right? Because they'll be
But my
they'll be
penis
like,
is small, so how would I know that?
yep. No. This is listen. We're all kings here today. Yeah, because that's the meme, right? It's like that girl goes to the club. She's fucked like 40 dudes. That pussy must be gaped. But then that's 40 dudes. That's 40 times having sex. You can get that shit done in fucking a month.
And it was probably bad sex, because like the first time in my experience, always the worst with somebody.
Yeah, you come faster the first time. Usually, in my experience, at least.
Yeah, no, I think I kind of overly emphasized on that. I mean, the other part of like increased of STDs, like there's a higher chance of having STDs when you have different partners. I understand you could use like condoms and whatnot, but who does? I don't. I mean,
but there is a difference between criticizing somebody for something and criticizing somebody for something which is correlative with that thing. So somebody could say at the same time, it does matter when people have STIs. Obviously, that would certainly matter to me, but it still doesn't matter how many sexual partners they had in the past, because while there may be a correlative factor, it's entirely possible for a person to have a very high count and not
well, no, it'll be a valid person. I mean, I think is what you're coming down to. Like, they're not invalid for having multiple sex partners or high amounts.
Well, many people do believe that there's an inherent moral failing.
Sure, no, I agree. And you know what part of the problem is with that video too? It's probably because I come up from a perspective where like I don't actually care about your body count. So I didn't relay that message probably because like it's just basic fucking knowledge to me. But like again, no, I understand what you're saying without representing that side. Like I could have made the same video in a better way, or not made it at all, but I could have made the same video in a way that would brought context rather than like some kind of like a demonization unintentionally. But I understand what you're saying, because I didn't bring that up at all.
Yeah,
I'm not because I make critical videos, and like I'll do it in the right way where I'm like, I understand your point, but this is a thing too. But I didn't do it in this one like I should have.
Yeah, I'm not a pussy scientist. I'm just an enthusiastic amateur, so I'm sure there's But with this is, I think this might actually hit kind of on the crux of what I'm interested in talking about for the most part. At least this time, I'm happy to talk with you in the future if you'd like.
Yeah, no, great. I still want to talk about. I actually, not to derail you, but I do want to have like a conversation one day about how to end systemic racism.
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to.
For sure. For sure.
Do you know what I was doing 48 hours ago by chance?
Masturbating? I don't know.
In a sense, in reality, I was I was debating. I was doing a duo debate. With it was very big. It was the biggest my channels yet had. At least 30,000 people watching. In total, it was Destiny and myself. I don't know if you know who Destiny is. He's a
I've seen his content. One of the people on TikTok, they plug you and Destiny like religiously.
We do comparable stuff, at least politically. But it was him and I debating two Nazis, like full on, like they could be wearing the armbands Nazis, and we were talking about that and about racism, race and crime, and of course they have a lot of very interesting perspectives on race and crime.
Right.
And these are people I can't really have a conversation about when it comes to addressing systemic racism, because they think systemic racism is good. And so it's
I don't
very
mean to laugh.
difficult.
I don't mean to laugh, but it's like, I mean, and to their credit, at least they're acknowledging its existence.
Well, that was the
I
thing.
suppose.
First, they said it didn't exist, but then later they
Uh-huh.
conceded that it existed. But it's actually good that it exists. It was a wild ride, you know.
Would you consider that progress?
For the debate, maybe. I mean, they
Yeah, for
conceded
like just
the
their
point.
they're like, okay, it exists. Now, are we racist or not? Because a lot of times when I boil it down very simply, like I elevator pitch systemic racism, like, do you think that black people and white people are equal? And everybody's like, yeah, I do. I was like, so tell me why these factors exist. And they're like, oh, that's a good point. You know, that's how I elevator pitch. Nobody's ever gone like, no, they're not equal. I don't care.
Yeah, I don't. Well, but nobody says that.
No,
But a
right.
lot of
But you
people.
think-
A lot of people won't, because the thing is, and this
Right.
maybe you can make an argument that this is an argument against political correctness. A lot of racists are too afraid to say anything or ask questions in public because they know what the social consequences can be. Like, for
Right.
example, if a person could legitimately be asking this, they could say, "How are black people doing so poorly in our society? Like, haven't we given them handouts and affirmative action and stuff? I mean, is there something else going on there?" If they said that, like in any civil
I think that
circle,
sounds
they
almost
would be excised.
shit on, and that's like and I use ignorant not in a negative way, just like a lack of understanding. That's like ignorant in a way where it's like, hey, can you just educate me? And that's a lot of the problem because young kids don't get it. Neither on either side, no kid gets it, and it really pisses me off because you have the young conservative who doesn't really get it, and they are open to being like educated, and then the young progressive who doesn't get it, but they heard the talking points, so they're ready to shit on you, and nobody's really interested in like actually having a conversation. It just continues that
Well,
polarization.
and it can be likewise.
People just double down.
Because if
Yeah.
you've
Sure, yeah.
been active on the internet, you know, you can make some like, well, black people and white people are equal, and then somebody will come up to you with like a copy pasted list of FBI crime statistics
You
ready
want
to
to do
hit
one of
you
the
with some.
actually.
Yeah, one of
those.
those deep info hits. I think like ultimately, and I would argue that kid who is ignorant about like crime and such, I would argue that that kid is a racist. I don't think
You think so?
when I say racist, I'm not saying that I'm not making a moral prescription like this
get what
person
you're
has
saying,
failed
yeah.
like inherently. I'm just saying like their thought processes have led them towards a point where they're passively enabling racist thought. And
I get that, but I would say that's racially ignorant only because that thought process by itself, on a micro level, individual doesn't really oppress anybody in any sense. It doesn't or degrade anybody. It's just
That-
ignorant.
well,
But
that
again, we're
we-
just kind of arguing semantics. But I understand exactly what you're
True
saying.
that we
I
know
agree
of,
with you.
but then it goes
Yeah.
further because these people who have kind of like some internally racist thoughts, but like it's not malice. It's just like they don't really know. What they'll
sure.
then go on to do is many of these people have fairly conservative social positions, like about say for example welfare, the welfare state, individual responsibility, investment in civic projects, infrastructural development, stuff like that. And then these people who are in many cases Republican, will go ahead with no active, malicious, racially oriented thought in their mind to vote for people who will support policies that then enable the same social conditions that led to them believing things that are racist to begin with. And
But-
at that point, we have an entire Ouroboros, a circle of racism being perpetuated through not a drop of malice. And the only thing that one can do in that cycle at some point is to cut it off at a limb and say, nope, fuck it. We're challenging this.
I
We're
get what you're
stopping it
saying.
here. And sometimes that
they-
makes people uncomfortable. But as long as it's done well, I think it's just.
I would say only reason, like with the hypothetical you proposed, when you say they vote for like these particular policies, do you think they're voting for those policies, or do you think they're voting for something entirely else, and that those policies are roped into it? And not to be like a Trump apologist, or rather a supporter apologist, but I think most people voted for him in 2016, at least the people I know in my circle, because he was the only one talking about the solution to the middle class being drained and wages driving down. And they were like, I want somebody who can do something, even if he didn't do it well or very well. That's what they're voting for. They're voting for the empowerment of the middle class, and they think that he can bring it. The other policies they don't care about because it's not in their bubble.
I just don't know if that's
you get
what
the-
people voted for Trump for. I think a lot
I
of them
feel
just
like it
wanted to
is.
return to white power in this country.
I think that a lot of people.
I
honestly,
have no
like,
sympathy. Everything that Trump signaled, his racism, his
do you think
bigotry,
he was racist
everything.
at first?
Oh, yeah, the Mexican
Because all
comments.
I remember was like, grab her by the pussies, like it's, and then also like, hey, they're bringing over bad people, and it seemed like a lot of that was really directed towards gang members.
Nah, he was hardcore going like anti-immigrant, like xenophobic populism with Muslims and Mexicans. He
Yeah,
talked no,
okay,
no,
it
but
was
even during
legit.
the even like during the primaries, like before they even selected Trump amongst all the Republican candidates, he was talking
Mhm.
about committing war crimes, how he was going to bring back waterboarding and worse. He was going to kill the families of terrorists. He was going to bomb the shit out of them. Like
You don't think
this,
we should kill the families of terrorists?
I would hope not. I mean,
Oh well, I guess that you know what's
if they're
funny
not
about that? No,
terrorists,
no, no, no. That's so funny. Honestly, I just nay-nayed myself because that's a good point. Because when you say families of terrorists, your first thought's like terrorists, but
I,
that doesn't mean that they're terrorists. Like,
terrorists are usually like young men. It's
yeah,
usually their
yeah,
parents are just
right.
trying to
But they're
live.
sure, yeah, no. But like your first thought is like, oh, they're also terrorists, but they're not.
Th-
It's like that's like an ignorant thought that I just went to
yeah,
unintentionally.
yeah. I mean, well, I
Yeah,
mean,
no,
if the
yeah,
family members are terrorists too, sure. But otherwise,
right, right.
the
No,
point I'm
yeah.
getting is that
No, I get what you're
Trump
saying. Yeah, it's
signaled
just
so much shit before he was elected. I have no. And what did he say to promise to the middle class? That he was going to bring back jobs? Idiotic. I know the average
yeah, right.
American isn't particularly educated on how the modern like geopolitical economy works, but the idea that we could restore the middle class by bringing back fucking Rust Belt jobs was a
Mhm.
pipe dream to
Well,
begin
no,
with.
that's what I was saying. Is like, well, that's the thing. Is you also have to speak to the ignorance of the people that they're voting. Like, they don't understand like what the problem is now. I don't think that many people did. I don't think it was very popular. The understanding of why jobs were being lost
Even now,
nowadays.
Trump has a 90% approval rating amongst Republicans, and he's an open
Does he?
fascist at this point. I
You
don't
think
think
so?
these
Maybe,
people
but
were just duped.
I do think that some people at this point they find it like a war on political correctness. Like they don't. They're just kind of like excusing it because they think that most of the shit against him is wrong or some kind of conspiracy. And like for every 10 times the progressive media is right, there's like one time where they kind of fuck up and they force a particular
Yeah, but
narrative.
what we're this war on political correctness is largely like an internet phenomena, but it's being used to justify the support of a literal fascist who is trying to
Mhm.
undermine our democratic processes.
Do you who what's well my thing is like because we have two choices. So like what's the solution? Because we got fucking Biden
Yeah,
and
I'm riding. I'm hella riding. Yeah.
are you into Biden?
Yeah. Yeah, got to
Is
vote
it
for the best
what's good?
candidate.
What's good about it? Like, I'm not saying that he's worse than Trump. I just what's good about it? Because from my perspective, and this, and like, I like to when I talk to people, I like to propose that like, I know I speak well, but I'm like generally like I'm the ignorant white guy who like knows a little better. So I don't quite understand the appeal because for me, Biden just seems like he really is having difficulty constructing a sentence. I haven't seen any policy from him that I like to rally around. So like, what is it about? Because my perspective is, hey, what if we did Trump for another 4 years? And then historically speaking, a Democrat's going to win the next election, like guaranteed, because like usually neither party wins 3 times in a row. So we're guaranteed a Democrat after Trump's over. We give 4 more years to him. We get somebody else. Hopefully, there's no more old people running. Maybe we can get somebody like I don't know, Buttigieg or Andrew Yang. Probably not Yang, but you get my point. So for me, it's like why not just wait it out? Because I don't understand the sphere. Like I'm not really affected by him because I'm a white guy. So like, what's the appeal to Biden?
We've all been, I mean, COVID-19 is going to ravage our country in large part because of Trump. Trump admitted to a crime against humanity in his rally in Tulsa that he scaled back testing because it made his administration look bad to find out how many people actually had it. We can't do contact tracing, one of the most important forms of pandemic prevention, because Trump wanted to save his own ego. And
Mhm.
that's going to hurt our economy too. I mean, this affects all of us. But if we're talking about like preferentiality for Biden, for me, I'm an anarchist. Every
Mhm.
candidate is going to be a concession. Even Bernie Sanders is still a statesman. There is no who is good or bad. There's only who is better or worse. And with regards to
Mhm.
who is better or worse, Biden beats out Trump in almost every conceivable metric.
Mhm.
Biden does have like a fairly progressive platform, at least compared to previous Democratic candidates, and he's acquiesced pretty significantly to many of the demands that AOC, Bernie Sanders, and other Justice Dems have made. It is true that he is a worthless, doddering old dipshit who is only following popular political trends, but
Mhm.
that's Trump too. Trump's just following a
Sure.
worse
Yeah.
crowd. I think that Biden will be easy to bully and manipulate and extort over the next 4 years. I think he's weak and malleable, and that'll
That's
make it
fair.
relatively easy for the more aggressive, younger Justice Dem types to win out over him and maybe extract greater social concessions. That's my hope. I do look forward to bullying Biden. It looks like he's going to win.
You think
Um,
so?
from current polling, yeah, he's ahead like massively in 12 out of the 14 swing
Oh, and
states.
all he did was just not talk for like 6 months.
Trump's doing pretty poorly. I mean,
No, I mean like Trump won't shut the fuck up. Like I mean,
yeah.
he just won't stop talking.
Well, because he's an egomaniac. I don't think Joe
Yeah,
Biden's
right.
an egomaniac. I think that Joe Biden's just kind of like senile idiot, I guess. I mean, not an
Sure,
idiot,
yeah.
like a I don't know. I
Because
think
to
he's
his credit, he was like he has quite like a decent career. Like he just seems like a little.
yeah, he's a
He's a little.
folksy weirdo. He's just
He's like a
following the
70-year-old grandpa that's a little bit kind of racist, but like not intentionally. He just doesn't get it.
right, and that I think
Kind of
that's a
look at.
critical distinction as well. I don't know. I mean, I don't like the discussing this in full would probably be pretty extensive, but like Trump has
Mhm.
pandered pretty hard to like the far right, like not just conservatives, but the
Mhm.
far right. Especially
Mhm.
recently, a lot with the imagery and the language that he's used being like out of a fascist playbook. I mean, you literally are just stamping American flags on like examples of fascism A through L. With that in mind, to me, it's an existential threat. This country will die in the cradle of his second presidency if he's allowed to win again.
You think that? You think that bad, huh?
Well, maybe not. I mean, I'm rich and white, so maybe
Are
I'll
you
make it.
rich?
At this point, yeah. Hey, thanks all my
Hey,
viewers
good
for
for you,
that.
man.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Um,
Good for you, man. I respect the right. I respect it. But like, how, are you a capitalist? Because if not, give all your money back.
hey, listen, we're working on it. Okay, I'm building an apparatus to redistribute the means of production.
Are you communist? Communist? What the fuck's the matter with me? Are
I'm
you?
a communist, yeah.
I meant to ask if you're capitalist,
Oh no,
or
no,
like
I
rather,
want no,
what's
no.
your
I want to seize the means of production. Yeah.
what's your view? Like, what does it mean for you to be a communist? Because I would say I'm a capitalist, but I also think that we're labeling each other without having like a deeper understanding of how we would run
Yeah.
things ideally in our magic world
Yeah.
where neither of us know.
So my general argument is that I don't like hierarchy very much. I'm a very, very big fan of freedom,
Mhm.
freedom and individual autonomy. I don't like the idea of people spending their lives in the service of a greater system without any say over that system. So
Mhm.
to my mind, there are two very fundamental problems or obstacles with our system that inhibit our ability to live free and just lives. The first of
Mhm.
which is the existence of a market economy, which necessarily commodifies things such to the extent that men's lives must be lived on the dollar. And the second
Mhm.
would be the private ownership of the means of production, i.e., certain things are owned by certain numbers of people, which allows them to take control of certain economic and governmental systems and wield
Mhm.
them to the betterment of their interests and not to the interests of others. My
Is there
goal, oh,
some
sorry.
kind of class? Sorry, is there some kind of class structure in your utopia? Uh,
Ideally, I mean, ideally, no, but I
mhm.
recognize that when it comes to theory baiting here, when we're talking about like lofty ideals like communism and anarchism, the theory is always quite a bit simpler. I mean, if we take a look at the difference between what Adam Smith wrote in Wealth of Nations and compare it to capitalism today, I recognize there's always going to be a little bit of ambiguity and nuance when it comes to transposing that system into reality. Right now, today, I
Mhm.
recognize that the world isn't ready for these ideas. I don't think we're materially capable of achieving them. So I'm
Mhm.
interested in bolstering the power and autonomy of the working class so they can be
Mhm.
empowered to democratically push for policies that will lead us in that direction. That's my current goal, I think.
That makes sense. Because for me, I like the structure of capitalism in the sense that I think that if you contribute more to society, you should have better things. With the understanding that we have like a we don't have we have a dog shit floor. Like people, with the understanding that we have a better quality of life for our poor people, and like fewer poor people or less poor people and less rich people, if that makes any sense.
Mhm.
Some form of wealth, because I'm all about UBI. Like I love wealth redistribution in the sense of like giving people like a leg up to like push for their own opportunity, um, and like also offsetting technologies, which I think are driving down wages and absolutely displacing jobs. But I like the fundamentals of like, hey, if you contribute more, you should get more. Obviously, there's an issue with like people who solely exist to
Can I ask,
generate more money and like like in the like the stock market,
what
which
do you mean by
I don't.
contribute more?
All right, so I'm not talking about like rich people who like just continues to play the stock market. I'm talking about like doctors. They have a higher contribution. It's more difficult to become a doctor. It takes more skill. So you should live more comfortably if you're a doctor
Can I sell
or
you on
somebody.
something?
What's that?
Do you, so you're of the opinion then
Mhm.
that ownership of a thing is not necessarily, in a meritocratic sense, worthy of a tremendously disproportionate compensation. When you refer to merit, you're talking about the engineer, the doctor, the electrician, these people
Yes,
who,
yeah, yeah,
right,
yeah. The
right.
people who like have a job that's takes training and is difficult to get to that point.
Could I
And
sell
that,
you
yeah,
then on the abolition of the private ownership of the means of production?
I don't know. You know what? Maybe not tonight because it's probably a long conversation. Because it might also come from a perspective of like, what's the best course forward now? In the sense that I think we have a lot of people nowadays have like a very instant gratification perspective where it's like we need to do this exactly, and it's like yeah, that's probably a great idea, but like you're not going to get there yet. And so like I focus very much on like if I think that if by the time I'm dead, if I could somehow get a universal basic income, universal healthcare implemented, and that would be enough progress for the next generation to like take the step forward and like to start to change things further. Because I'm in acknowledgement that like as I get older, I'm going to get maybe a little more progressive, but I'm basically going to become more and more conservative as everything shifts, and I will be outdated in 30 years. But my ideas right now make sense for the time, where like my ancestors will be the ones to continuously perpetuate that progress. But I'm very much in the now. You know what I'm saying?
No,
Do you know what I
no,
mean?
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. I just try to refine the
Inexorably,
concept. Yeah.
we'll be pushed right relative to the general dialogue, at least
Yeah.
relatively speaking, because people tend to be getting more
And we like to
progressive.
jump forward. Like we should do all these things. Like those are good ideas, but like let's take it a step. Let's take a nice step forward, feel it out, and then take another step forward.
Can I ask
almost
you
from, like, a
one question?
scientific,
We should probably cut soon anyway, because I
Yeah,
know
yeah, yeah,
that
of course.
I would ideally like it if the TikTok Zoomers could appreciate our convo, and I know that anything longer than 1 hour is probably going to be unpalatable.
I mean, anything longer than like 15 seconds is too much.
I'll break
if you
it.
cut the video into just a bunch of
400
15
segments. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah, they'll consume it.
Oh, are you a do you know much about worker cooperatives by chance?
I know a little bit about like worker co-ops. I know a little bit like they work for a particular they own their business I guess altogether, and they all take like a bit of the company as their pay. I think I'm dumbing it down too much, but that's my understanding of it basically.
Yeah, I guess my general argument would be, and I'm happy to talk about this sometime in the future. My general argument is we have a lot of while right now our money doesn't really go to the people who deserve it the most. A lot of it goes
Sure.
through inheritance, through capital
Mhm.
gains tax, like capital acquisition, that kind of stuff. But in
Absolutely.
a social sense, the social acumen we award people, I think, is actually fairly indicative of the merit. When there's like a local baker who consistently makes phenomenal bread and they always serve it with a smile, people love that man or
Yeah.
woman or whatever.
And that's what
The
that's what I'm
doctors,
talking about.
right?
Yeah.
The doctors, the what have you. I say, and this would be my general argument, that worker cooperatives, when the workplace is owned collectively by everyone who works there, whether that's a hospital or a bakery, these
Mhm.
systems are better at proportioning income towards social acumen than traditionally owned firms are, which are oriented around an incentive structure that has essentially nothing to do with social appreciation, which is of course why teachers are paid what they are. And
Sure. Yeah.
right, and such and such. But anyway, that's definitely a conversation for a different time.
No, I agree. Every time there's a budget increase, we get a new iPad instead of just pay our teachers more.
Yeah, exactly. They bring like consultant in or somebody to do fucking
Yeah,
yoga
right. Yeah, like an administrative person
seminars.
that
Yeah.
does almost nothing for the value of the teacher or the student to increase the experience. Yeah.
I really appreciate you coming here to speak with me.
Are you cutting me off?
I thought we were agreeing on the hour format. I didn't realize.
Oh, I'm fine. No, I'm fine with being done. No, I'm fine. I just didn't know
No,
we were
okay.
cutting off
Whoa,
there.
I didn't realize. We can do 2.
I'll go to 12. Well, I don't know what time it is. I'll do like another 20 minutes, and then I'm gonna stream like World of Warcraft or something.
Oh,
If you wanna
fuck yeah!
play.
Wait. Are you playing classic or are you doing?
No, don't shame me. I used to love classic. I just don't have the time for it. I work 40 hours. I stream for like another. Well, I guess I could stream classic, but I usually try to play with my fans. They love Valorant and like Minecraft. So
Okay, I used to be really, really good at World of Warcraft, so I'm just.
Yeah.
I haven't played.
Burning Crusade was my thing. I'm just prepping for the next X pack, so I'm releveling all the tanks.
Right,
if you want to play,
getting ready for Sylvanas, the fucking raid
Yeah,
boss,
no, but
only
you
for
know
her
what
to
I like
escape
about-
and then be the raid boss for the next.
That's yeah, no, you're probably. I like the idea of like the Mythic Pluses because it's competitive dungeons that you can continuously play. It's like almost like speed running for World of Warcraft, and I think it's kind of cool. And I want to get back into it because I used to like it a lot in last expansion. So I'm getting ready for next next X pack rather.
Yeah.
So if you want to play, I'm just gonna say I'll give you.
I can't. I don't know. I can't do it.
All
I don't
right.
have time.
It doesn't take that long to level anymore. Just letting you know the new. Just letting you know.
No,
Throwing
'cause
it out there.
I'm in it for the hardcore rating. That's guaranteed 15
I get
hours a
that. Yeah.
week minimum. You know?
Maybe. I mean, Mythic rating isn't that bad. It's not as bad as it used to be. And people walk through Molten Core now in Classic in like an hour because it's back then it was hard. Now it's just like so dumbed down. It makes it less fun because the game is so meta that like if you don't follow, everything is structured for you. You know everything that's perfect.
We can't get started. This is this is I am more passionate about this than I am any political situation. Yeah. I am well usually after I drop the socialism pill, I'm usually pretty spent. Do you have were there any things in particular that you wanted to hit on?
No, I don't think we have enough time for anything big now. I think that like I would love because when you reached out to me, which I really appreciate by the way.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I figured you'd ask me what you want to talk about because you asked Nick videos. We could talk about that for a minute if you want. But I was like, oh, maybe he'll ask. Like, I was like, how can we end systemic racism? Because I think that there's like a lot to talk about there, and there's probably two very close perspectives. Just in my perspective, probably was just like, I mean, I'm a simple man,
mm-hmm.
And I think that would have been a great conversation because people are always just jerking each other off over like how bad something is, what's the issue here, and here, and like nobody wants to talk about like the solution. Like there's so many people that say systemic racism doesn't exist, but there's a class issue. So it's like, okay, we agree on enough to like push forward with a solution, and we're not talking about it enough,
I guess in my experience, the people who say that it's all a class issue then also don't give a fuck about class issues.
Are you talking shit about Ben Shapiro?
I have never met a person who said, well, actually, systemic racism doesn't exist. These are very clearly delineated class issues.
But have you met Ben Shapiro?
And then they go on to say, and we should invest heavily in these underprivileged. I have never met somebody do that. They just say, oh, it's class issue. Yeah. And then internally what the viewer is supposed to go is, oh, a class issue. So they're lazy.
Right.
And then they ignore
I get what
it.
you're saying.
Yeah. Wait, can we talk about Nick? I hope he doesn't mind us talking about
he's
him.
He's an okay guy. I'll talk about Nick. He's a fun guy. He's trying to get out of politics, but I think he gets a bad rap.
Yeah, what happened? Yeah, what happened there? Because I saw a lot of his TikToks preparing.
He bailed
to talk
on you, no?
He did, but
not bailed, but like in a nicer way. Like
right. He
respectfully. I think it's genuine. I don't think he
left me on
way. Yeah, I don't think he was running away. I think that Nick gets a lot of shit. He's a young kid too. He gets so much crap for saying like the wrong thing, and I think he's like the victim of like a younger, or not even younger, but like the idea that like he identifies as conservative instead of allowing his.
I'm so sorry, guys. Nick Videos, the formerly conservative TikTok star, not
he's
Nick
still conservative.
Fuentes,
he just doesn't like Trump.
Okay, conservative, not Nick Fuentes, the neo-Nazi,
classic liberal
on D Live. Okay, yeah, there we go. All right, just clarifying, guys. The other Nick.
I think what the hell was I saying? Oh, I think that like he falls victim to the idea of like forcefully identifying as conservative rather than letting his like rules or moral set drive him towards a particular part on the spectrum. And he was like doubling down so hard on Trump and getting blasted so much. And then he hung out with like some dude on TikTok and he's like, I don't like Trump anymore and I want to make less political content. And he made some weird videos and then he kind of just stopped.
What were the weird videos?
I don't know. He had one where I don't know the drama. There was something about a while back where he was like sexually harassing women. I don't know that it was sexually harassing or if it was just like a 17-year-old boy saying, hey, what's up? And then like not taking a hint. I don't know. I don't mean to be like a rape apologist because I absolutely am not.
No, that's I think we can all agree. Anyone who's engaged in any form of sexual harassment should never have a platform again.
No, right. But I don't think that was his intention. I think that he was just not picking up on the signal. But then he made a video the other day that was like trying to make like a funny joke about a girl coming out of a pool slowly with their bathing suit. I'm like, Nick, poor form.
Okay, no, it's fine. It's fine. I was joking. I was fine. No. Yeah. I do think that especially when you're young and you're always online, it's virtually impossible to navigate that space without eventually doing something like stupid that gets a bunch of eyes on you. I think that's it's basically an inevitability. The internet is really fucking cruel to young people.
It's a trap for kids. They get really like they don't get it. Like if this was around when I was 17, I'd be done. I'd be over. Like it would never work out. I was so stupid.
Oh, I could not deal with what I deal with today if I was just a little bit younger. I need every ounce of wizened fortitude that my old 26-year-old body currently has in order to survive the shit that I get.
Yeah, right. I'm I'm like a late bloomer. I feel like I would have been like decimated. So I'm lucky with that in that perspective. I feel bad for Nick. We had a little bit of drama. He blocked me for a while because I asked him why his duets were off. And like 3 times, then he blocked me. He's like, people make fun of me and call me gay with Lance. And I'm like, who cares? I wish people would say I was gay. I don't care. Who cares? Let them call you gay. I don't know.
Is Nick?
I don't care.
I feel. Is Nick not? So Nick's not gay.
I don't think he's gay.
Okay.
Did you think he was?
I listen. The YouTube is a very different space. A lot of the people who come from me say a lot of weird stuff about my sexuality, and I feel like they're projecting. So
I heard that you might be gay. No, not like a
Oh,
criticism.
yeah, I fuck dudes too.
Okay, well, fucking dudes doesn't mean that you're necessarily gay.
True.
Unless you're gonna,
He gets it.
Well,
He gets it.
I would say though that like I wish we just kept it at gay. No lesbian, no bisexual. I'm a little gay. That's what I wish.
Like it's a binary, like you're either,
yeah, like it's just like,
and then it would make things.
Like, are you
simpler.
straight or are you gay or are you just like a little gay? And I would just say, like, yeah, I'm a little gay. Like I enjoy like a femboy.
People criticize you for that, but the funny thing is, a lot of LGBT people agree. They just won't admit it because they'll say, "Oh, that's so gay. How gay are they? Ooh, how gay is this meetup going to be? Is this going to be a gay party?" But they don't mean gay. They mean everything under the umbrella, and you're using it in that way. So I would say that while you may not be gay linguistically, you are affecting gayness right now.
I would say I'm a little gay though, because I like enjoy I enjoy femininity in gen more than anything else. So like I've been into like I haven't really done too much intercourse with any man, but like I would be into it with like a feminine man, or like a trans woman. And I don't mean to call I don't think that trans women are invalid. I think that they're women, but if you have a penis, it is a little gay for me.
Yeah, okay, well, I would argue that having sex with a trans woman is straight, but it requires a different understanding of straightness, I think, than many people have been led to. Than many people have been
I would
raised
say
on.
that is a perspective of younger people, and for me, like I'm not disagreeing with you. As time goes on, like it'll shift what is and isn't gay. Right now, from my generation, it's a little gay to be attracted to a woman with a penis, and I say woman as a 100% valid woman with a penis. Like
right,
I'm not
right. It's
you know what I'm saying?
Of course, it's the reason why some people in my chat don't understand what you're saying is because they don't recognize the difference between no, they don't recognize the difference between prescript and because here are two completely true statements. Trans women are women, but also for many people in this country, for many generations, large contingent absolutely believe that there is something a little bit gay about having sex with a trans woman.
I think so.
Both of those things can be
without a penis, with like the surgery, whatever. But I also don't see gay as like a weird label. Like I find it as like a label that doesn't matter other than to classify who you want to have sex with. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't matter. Oh, is it okay if that's with a trans woman? Like who cares?
Do you
maybe, but does it matter?
Do you know who ContraPoints is?
Do you have a counterpoint?
Do you know who ContraPoints is?
Oh no.
Oh, she's an aesthetician who did an entire like seminal thesis on the consistency of girl dick on YouTube. It's actually a pretty phenomenal watch.
What does that mean? The consistency of
girl dick? The mouthfeel is the academic term. Anyway, you should watch it sometime. It's a very entertaining video. I'm actually surprised. ContraPoints is probably the biggest independent left-leaning content creator on YouTube. Do you just not get much into the YouTube politics sphere?
I don't. This right now is all politics. Like I started TikTok to just do like I started TikTok because my girlfriends told me to download it, and then I got into it, and then I just started making content, and like this is all the politics I've ever done. Like I did a little bit of politics in like 2016, like a couple of videos. I'm like, I'm not into it, and then this is it. So I'm not like educated on any other content creators. I don't sit down and consume anybody else. My favorite creator is like H3H3, and I haven't watched him in like a year. So like that's where I'm coming from.
Okay, that's the best. That's the healthiest possible mindset you could ever have. Fuck YouTube. Fuck YouTube politics. Actually,
sometimes I know about like Tati. I know what's going on with Tati because my girlfriend loves Tati.
It just got made a little bit better because some prominent Nazis got banned off YouTube. So I'm a little bit happy about that.
Well, that sucks. We need to value their perspective.
Whoa! That can be another subject for discussion.
I was being sarcastic.
Oh, okay, I don't know. I do think there's an argument for the idea that right now a bunch of megacorps completely dictate the terms of conversation for people. I do think that's really fucked. But yeah.
I think that there's like systemic. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but like basically, I think that some people wouldn't be so far right if we didn't have such a polarizing system. And like we are pushing people towards the right just by not really like because some people are just like, hey, I'm a little ignorant. Can we have a conversation? Like, no, you're a Nazi. And then I feel like some people get angry and they just like double down and they just start to like draw more and more right. Sometimes more and more left too. I would say more like
that was my fucking argument getting into this because if you're like a 15-year-old dipshit fucking white boy in high school, okay, and you go come on, 15-year-old
I know what you're gonna say.
Yeah.
You're gonna say like I'm rallying the 15-year-old into being
No,
a Nazi.
no. You're taking it too negative, my friend. I am agreeing with you in every sense.
No, yeah.
When you,
because I would say that the progressive does that just as much as me. The difference is I'm trying to give the boy a chance.
No. But not even you. When you're this fucking kid and you go online, inevitably you have to take a camp. Everyone has. If you get involved in politics, there are always camps.
Sure,
That's just how the world works. Some people are more iconoclastic, but there are always camps. And then you get online and two sides approach you. You've got the progressives and you've got the conservatives. And the conservatives come to you and they're like, hey, dude, you're fucking based, epic, and poggers. You're looking great. Hey, did you know you are the victim of discrimination? There are people who dislike you for being white. They're misguided.
Yeah.
We have facts.
And you can see a little bit of it too from the progressives,
and
even
logic.
if it's over exaggerated.
We have facts and logic on our side, and if you come to us, you'll never have to change how you are. There will be a constant parade for your superiority over the people who disagree with you. And then this kid, after that, gets approached by the progressives, and the progressives are like,
you have a lot of work to do, bud, and
you've got a lot of work to do, buddy. Okay, so first of all, half the language you've grown up using is really problematic, and also we're going to need you to read these books on critical theory before you can understand the relationship between you and people of color and how you should address them when you're talking about social issues. Don't speak up over others, but do make sure you get your coursework in. Like, fuck, of course these kids are going to the right. No shit.
But I would say that if anything, I'm just another camp. I just don't give a shit about anybody. Like, I hate fucking hype houses, and I've been asked to join a hype house, and I was like, no, because now we're not going to criticize each other when we say dumb shit. I like you, but I don't like you that much. I'll criticize my own mother. You think I'm going to not criticize you? I don't want to be in your hype house. It's just like a hive mind. I don't care what side it's on. It's weird. I don't get it.
I turned it down, but only because I dislike collabs. I'd be willing to do it if I wasn't so averse to working with other people. But I mean, I spend half of my channel criticizing lefties anyway. Literally, right before talking to you, there was a possibility of me talking to like Peter Coffin and disagreeing with him over some dumbass fucking Twitter takes. Yeah, like or they had. Sorry, I'm always doing that. So I think being able to criticize your own side is an essential component of developing like a healthy political mindset.
Oh yeah, because I think it's helpful to move forward too.
Just unless you're criticizing me, then it's bad.
Well, yeah, of course. That's the standard I try to set, because like if somebody comes after me, I try to come after them. Unfortunately, sometimes I come after them a little harder. I probably have like an ego issue, but who doesn't have their vices?
I certainly can't levy any criticisms in that respect.
We're all people, Sometimes I just go a little too hard. I really wish I could have like a conversation with like some of these people. They don't really. There's a lot of people on TikTok that like they pretend that they're activists. And then, like, the second that you say, hey, like, I disagree, you want to have a conversation? But, like, no, I don't want to talk to you about that. Like, no, you're gross, you're disgusting, your followers are terrible. I had a whole tiff with the girl because she made a video that's like, if you don't believe in Black Lives Matter, unfollow me right now. I don't want you on here. Yada, yada, yada. And then, like, she was, like, a legitimate activist, like, put in a lot of legwork. And I do edit it. And I don't know if I know how stitches work, but, like, it only takes 5 seconds of the video. So like I cut in, like I do a lot of those, and I was just like, "Hey guys, if you don't agree with me, you can stick around and like give me the privilege to change your mind." And like she got really mad at that.
Well, that right there, and this, God, man, it's so funny to hear you say this because I feel like you're treading over all like these giant controversies. When I was really small, I was so angry at like the broader online left because I felt like they were so bad at doing what they needed to do. And now I'm much larger, and I feel like I'm still arguing the same point, maybe just with a louder voice. And it's that there's a difference between activist spaces and safe spaces. Safe spaces are fine, well, and good. If you want to be comfy and go online as a black trans woman and not be shit-talked or whatever,
I want to talk about black trans women next.
Very, 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 very okay. But if you want to be an activist, you have to get your hands dirty, and conflating those two spaces will either lead to ineffective activism or damaging, safe spaces.
Yeah,
exactly. I think we have just enough time for whatever hot take you have on black trans.
Okay, good, because I love talking. I don't burn out easy. All I wanted to say is one of the issues. What's like so weird? I don't. Are you active? And well, you probably are very well educated on like LGBT community. This person proposed a point that like gay white men were taking over the LGBT community. I don't know if you agree with that.
I do in many cases,
and I contested the point in a way where it was like, I don't necessarily agree. I think that media representation of what the LGBT community is always gay white men, because that's the safest to consume. And the media that says like, "Hey, we're on your side," isn't bold enough to say, "Here is a non-passable black trans woman," which is what should be perpetuated.
Yeah, no,
You know what I'm
I'd
saying?
completely
Yeah,
agree with that. Yeah,
yeah.
100%.
And like that's a point and the person wouldn't even take me up on the talk, because that's, I think it's real. We're
Yeah.
very whitewashed, and white people are, they like, gay white men's it. That's pretty much
A lot
and
a lot of kids forget too. If you go online right now in progressive spaces, it's trans this, trans that, all very
Mhm.
all inclusive. But in the real world institutions that tend to defend LGBT rights, from shelters to advocacy groups to lobbying groups, these groups still tend to be, I mean, the people in them are older, and they tend to be from a time where LGBT rights was literally just fighting for gay marriage. A lot of gay
Mm,
people, even older gay people, still have bad memories from Stonewall, at least maybe in a generational
sure.
sense, where essentially like trans people got shafted, and gay people like shoved them under the bus because they didn't want to be associated with what was considered the more odious portions of their community. But I completely agree with your take. We're making progress though. Apparently, a black
Yeah.
trans model was recently thrown up by Calvin Klein in a Times Square billboard. I think I saw that on Twitter. So
That's
that's nice.
good. Next, I have to do is I have to look at black trans women next time I look at Pornhub, and then we'll have made full progress.
Yeah. Just yeah, got to infuse that the progressive Coomer instinct. Thank you for coming on and talking to me.
I appreciate the conversation. I want to say that, like, I appreciate the criticism, because unlike a lot of the people I duet, I can take the criticism and I will hold it dearly enough. And hopefully we talk again, honestly. And maybe next time I can show my face. And I have a nice shirt on. I have a merchandise shirt on.
Okay, well, that's why we don't have you on cam, because I'm unshaven and I'm wearing a shirt that doesn't contrast enough with my
I
skin
see
tone.
your cam on YouTube. Anyway, just the last plug. Papa Good on
Yeah, Papa_Gun on TikTok. Yeah, 100%.
and then I have a YouTube, so find it through my link tree on TikTok, or just look up Papa Good. I love you very much. Thank you for having me on.
Have a wonderful day. Thank you. Okay. Trans rights. There, I said it. Yeah. Thanks for chatting, man. Oh yeah, hell yeah. I assume you can still hear me. Yeah, hell yeah, Papa. 100%. Man, you guys are a lot more critical than I remember. That's a little bit unfortunate. I don't know if you know, Papa Gut is significantly more progressive and left leaning than the average person in this country, like by a massive margin. If listening to a conversation with somebody who's open to socialist ideas, aware of the co-opting of LGBT like signals for corporate virtue signaling and all that shit, and you're like reeing at this person, you are never going to be able to reach out to the average person. Anyway, no, I think I enjoyed talking to Papa Gut very, very much. And I do think he's an intelligent person. I like talking to people with that cadence. It's probably the beard. It's probably the beard. I think the vibing, the beard vibing, You haven't seen how much he allows fucking teenagers online to get bullied by his fans? Okay, I'm gonna do this one more time, okay? We're gonna have this talk for the 57th time. Okay. I am an outcome-driven person. What I care about most when I have conversations with people, especially large content creators, is to engage with them in ways that affect positive change. Now, obviously, that's not exclusively why I talk to people. I also just enjoy having fun conversations with intelligent people. But in the case of, if we're to morally prescribe like what we should do here, what we should do there, let me remind you guys that being hypercritical and extremely condemnable in conversations with folks like that makes us look like wingnuts, because that guy is really progressive by any measure. And for that reason, being like, well, you're irresponsible with your platform and the way you're doing it. Come on. Okay? Remember, my channel is an activist space, not a safe space. And that means that sometimes I'm going to talk to people whose language and attitudes do not perfectly orient with what you find personally comfortable. And while that does not mean you are wrong to be uncomfortable at some points, it does mean that, at least from my perspective, my work supersedes that in this space. Anyway, I really, for what it's worth, I really like talking to him. Had a lot of fun with that conversation. In my personal opinion. Hopefully we can talk more in the future.